I've finished weaving this band, and now I'm going to tuck in the tail so that the band won't unravel. I can cut it and have a short fringe. So I've got 3 picks left. Let's just weave a little border on the end of this. This is just to make it match the other side of the band where I also did this. Now from here, I'm going to cut this and use a tapestry needle to sew it in. So leave yourself a tail 6 to 8 inches and thread it on a tapestry needle that's the smallest one that you can fit that yarn through. Tip for threading a needle if you can't get the yarn through the eye is to fold it over the eye of the needle and pinch it really tight, and then you can press the needle onto the yarn. You use a tapestry needle that has a blunt point, not a sharp one, because we don't want to be piercing the individual yarns. So now I'm going to stitch into the previous shed following that weft path, but it's a little bit difficult to get in there. Something that makes it easier is if you back off the tension on your loom just a little bit. It lets those warp threads relax so you can get the needle into them. So now I can just slip it right into that previous weft path. Every once in a while, look on the back side to make sure your needle isn't poking through the back because you don't want to be stitching out the back of the band. All the way through to the selvage. Check it. Looks good. When you pull it through, get rid of the loop, but be careful that you don't tension tight enough to pull the band in. Just enough so that it's level with the previous edges. And I usually stitch it in for 2 previous weft picks. So let's go back one more. Wiggle the needle into that space. See, it wants to come out the top just as well as it wants to come out the back. And this is also why I don't use a sharp needle, because it's going to go right through the yarns. Let's check the back. Looks like I'm not going through the band. Pull through. Just snug up the edge, and that's it. Now I can take a pair of sharp scissors and clip right next to the selvage, being very careful not to clip the selvage thread. I've finished weaving this band, and now I'm going to tuck in the weft, but I'm going to show you a more efficient way to do it than using a tapestry needle. So I've got 3 picks to go to the end of my band, and I'm going to do plain weave patterning. And for this, instead of a tapestry needle, I need either a couple of extra heddles or some loops of thin thread. I happen to have a couple of loops of nylon that work really well for this purpose, but extra heddles work perfectly for this. So weave your last 3 rows. On the 3rd to last row, beat and weave across. Now take one of these extra heddles. This is actually a heddle from a different Inkle loom. Put it in the shed with the loop hanging out on the end where the shuttle started. My shuttle was over on the right, so I want the loop hanging out on the right side. The cut ends or the knot can hang out on the left side. Chain sheds and beat. It does not matter if the weft yarn comes over the loop that's sticking out or under. It really doesn't, because this loop is coming out. So beat it down. You might beat a little extra hard because there's something else in the shed taking up some space. Weave across, tidy up your edges. Take a second loop and place it in the shed, again with the loop coming out on the side where the shuttle started. And this time that was on the left before I wove across. So in the same shed, put in the loop hanging out the left side. That's my 2nd to last row. On my last row, chain sheds and beat. and weave across. Again, it doesn't matter if the weft goes over or under that loop. Check to make sure I'm not getting any wider. Since I've got extra stuff, my weft, my band might get a little wider. Okay. So that's the last 3 picks. Change the shed and beat one more time, but don't weave across. Now I'm going to cut the weft, leaving myself a tail of a few inches. Now this is where I would thread it on my tapestry needle and stitch across, which is a little bit difficult to do on a tightly woven band. But look here, there's my needle eye. I can tuck my tail into that loop far enough that I can fold it over so it can't pull out of the loop, but you don't want to pull it all the way through where it will bind. Just enough that it can fold over, then grab the other side and pull it through. So I don't have to worry about stitching in with the needle. Snug it up just enough that the band is the correct width, and you can check it with your sewing gauge to make sure that you don't flare or pinch the end. All right, let's stitch it through a second row. I always like to have mine tucked in twice. So yarn tail goes into the end of the loop, which is takes place for your needle eye, and then pull it through. Pull it snug against the edge, and then you can snip that weft tail close to the band, and it won't come undone when you take it off the loom and cut it.